Who's ready for a space adventure? The Silent Sea is a new Netflix sci-fi drama from South Korea. It can be tense and claustrophobic, but is it any good? During a perilous 24-hour mission to the moon, space explorers try to retrieve samples from an abandoned research facility steeped in classified secrets. This is an 8-episode season where each of the episodes is around 45 minutes in length. We follow a group of soldiers and scientists as they are sent to a research base on the moon to recover some mysterious samples. They're not told what the samples are or what they may encounter, just that they have 24 hours to complete the mission. This takes place in the future where Earth's water supply has pretty much dried up. There's a global drought and it's taking an extreme toll on life on Earth. People are given different statuses, which allow them to have different access to water. The higher up in status you are, the more often you can get water. And these soldiers and scientists are promised the top tier upon completing their mission. So there's great motivation for them to take part and successfully bring back the samples. I had fun with this and was engaged throughout most of it, but it's not without its problems. One thing that really bugged me is once the people land on the moon as they walk, they all have a very noticeably different amount of bounce to their steps. I mean, we've all seen either real footage of moonwalks or even spacewalks in the movies, where because of that lesser degree of gravity than is here on Earth, the astronauts can kind of hop a greater distance while traveling. In this series, when any of the players are walking on the surface of the moon, or even in an area that doesn't have artificial gravity, they look like they're intentionally trying to slow bounce walk through the scene. And each of the actors does it very differently, so it just became distracting to watch. Now, I know this is a very minor complaint, but it was drastically noticeable. Now, once the astronauts are within the research facility and carrying out their mission, a mystery slowly begins to unravel along with the search for those samples. And I like that because most of the characters are kept in the dark as to the full details of the mission, and then even why the facility itself was abandoned, it also creates a great deal of intrigue for us as the audience. I got sucked into the mystery because I figured something devious had occurred and I just wanted to know more. While the facility is massive, there are a ton of intersecting passageways, made even more confusing because of the numerous ventilation shafts and maintenance pathways. And this makes it easy for characters to get lost, or when crap hits the fan, makes for an intense escape because you never know where a passage may lead. Now, there are a few of the characters that we begin to get some character development on, but most of them remain strangers, which then creates all kinds of doubt and suspicion when things inevitably begin to go awry. I was never really quite sure who I wanted to root for, and this was compounded because while we have the astronauts in the middle, on one side we have this greedy government calling most of the shots, but also then on the other side, the possible pull and manipulation of corporate greed plays a big part too. And this makes for some very engaging conflict. Because one of the story mechanisms, and a lot of it just has to do with the setting itself, there's a portion that really reminded me of Aliens. The air shafts and passageways lend themselves to many different hiding spots. And because of all the mystery, and then the just extreme tension due to some conflicts, these become treacherous as our characters try to navigate them in their search. Now, the pace of this is pretty moving and engaging. I wasn't bored with it at any point, and it didn't ever feel like it was going too quickly. But there are some points, especially towards the end of the season, where something urgent had begun, and then it just kind of felt forgotten for a good portion of the story. And then it reared its head again and became urgent again. I think maybe the onset was initiated too quickly, so that when the story had to focus on just another part of the narrative, the tension is broken for that particular urgent sequence. Now, I really enjoyed the special effects. The heads-up displays and use of virtual screens are very convincing looking, and I loved also the scenes that took place outside of the research facility on the surface of the moon. I mean, it's desolate and foreboding, but also breathtaking and serene. Kind of in a you could die at any moment and all your troubles will be over type of serene. Something that I did find a little odd was that some of the soldiers carried guns with them that fired bullets. And all that kept running through my mind was Will Patton from Armageddon saying like, man, what are you doing with a gun in space? Just doesn't seem like an awesome idea to potentially fire bullets inside a pressurized thing where if a window is damaged, it's game over. And now we're back to Aliens. It's game over, man, game over. The storytelling in this is fairly tense, and I like how the narrative uses flashbacks to show us the key points at the right times. The overall backstory isn't necessarily pertinent, at least at the outset, but as the astronauts discover more and more within the facility, details from the past become vitally important. I was a little shocked at how dark part of the story got. I don't think it's really surprising in hindsight, but I wasn't thinking along the lines that the story ends up taking. And that doesn't mean I didn't like it, I just wasn't going down that particular path, so that when the plot takes us there, it was a surprise. As the season reaches the end, I certainly have questions, and which I think were there pretty much the entire time, just based on a plot point, and then the amount of time that had passed between the facility becoming abandoned and our team arriving. One portion isn't explained, and that lack of explanation continues through the season finale. Is this a make it or break it point for me? I don't really think it is, but I do think it would have made the story more strong had this particular question been answered. And I know that is seriously vague, but to sort of give a hint, there's nothing for the arriving team to eat at the facility. That probably makes my point even more confusing, but it could make sense once you've watched the show. I enjoyed the complexity of the characters. Some are emotional and conflicted, others are by the book, and then still others are only out for themselves. And the mix is wonderful as it can make for good teamwork, but more often than not is the source of exciting conflict. So overall, I had fun with the Silent Sea. The mystery and intrigue of the plot engaged me and kept me wanting to learn more. I also became emotionally invested in a few of the characters, and because of the treacherous nature of their mission, really no one was safe from an abysmal outcome. The special effects are convincing and enhance the storytelling, while the tension from the mission kept the pace taut. Despite me having some unanswered questions and having less than stellar looking moonwalks, the story is still one that was exciting and engaging. And the darkness of the tone gave the story more weight, which I think amped up my enjoyment even more. There's no sex or nudity, but there is profanity and a bunch of violence. I give The Silent Sea 4 out of 5 couches. So what's good sci-fi you've seen recently? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.